Fox 10 is Fox Local. Free live news and more just for you. Now available on your phone. Download the Fox Local mobile app today.
All right, it's that time for Fox 10 Talk Sports, the fun stuff. Oh, yeah, we got plenty to talk about. I got my man, Mark Malerich here.
Yes, we do.
What a difference a week makes, right? We were talking Mercury last week. They're done. They got swept by Las Vegas. But, boy, a lot going on when it comes to our starting quarterbacks for each team. Let's start with the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, K1. Not sure if he's going to be able to go this Sunday for a second week in a row.
Yeah, the Cardinals today did something that they don't typically do. They closed practice to the media as far as shooting video. They did make Jonathan Gannon available, players in the locker room available. But typically Wednesday's a day when Kyler Murray talks. So I think they're kind of keeping it close to the vest and not sure if Kyler's going to start. Maybe they give him another week rest. And then with the bye week next week, you give him 2 weeks. And then now you bring him back against Dallas on Monday night, and then he's ready to go. Jacoby Brissett proved that he's more than capable as a backup. And so I think there's a little, not that there's indecision, there's just been no decision. Right. Let's just put it that way. They don't know a definitive who they're going with. It could be Friday before we really know.
Right. And you know, Mark mentioned, Jacoby Brissett got the start last week, and he showed why he was a valuable asset this offseason, right? The Cardinals went out and got him. They wanted him. This guy started over 50 games in the National Football League. This was not his first rodeo, and you could tell, right, Mark? I mean, this was he moved the ball up and down the field, 320 yards passing, 27 points on the road against the Colts, a team that's was 4-1. This was a very good performance.
And Marvin Harrison going out halfway through that game with the concussion, and I think that almost opened it up to maybe not so much having tunnel vision on, I got to get Marv the ball or whatever. It's like, he can see the whole field. And the ball, what I liked was it was 1, 2, 3, the ball's out. There wasn't a lot of scrambling. He did have that scramble in the fourth quarter where he avoided a sack, got the first down, kept the drive alive, had a chance to win the game. But the fact that the Cardinals had a shot to win in the final minutes, again, it just shows you how close they are. I know a lot of fans are kind of like, looking at the schedule, this thing's over, no playoffs, and maybe they won't make the playoffs. But I was very encouraged about how they played, and I always talk about the eye test. Last week, to me, they passed the eye test as an offense.
Yeah, and it's funny you talk about how close they were. The 4 games they've lost by a combined 9 points.
I know. 2 of them by 1 point, last-second field goals on 3 of them, and the play-action pass was in effect, right? And then that's what happens when you got a guy that's okay with getting behind the center. It sets the illusion of a possible run. And Trey McBride, he benefited from the play-action pass. He did.
Last weekend.
Well, and not only that, but you're running play action with no running backs, really. Look at the running back room. You have Bam Knight, and it's like...
now hurt again. He's also hurt.
So it's not like you had James Conner back there and you're really selling a hard fake of like, hey, we are going to run the ball. They weren't really going to run the ball very much. They did it enough to keep the Colts honest. But you're right, Trey McBride did benefit from it. He had that touchdown in the end zone, which is a beautiful pass where he just high-pointed the ball. And then just that last play, it just felt like he just didn't get quite out of his break. There might have been a little bit of contact there. But if we get these things called production truck melts from Fox, where I have like 8 different versions of that play, and I've seen it from all different angles. The ball came out a little flat, I think, and it was outside and high.
Right. If it would have been a little bit closer,
I think so.
Target,
then maybe, if it was within an arm's reach or maybe a yard away, but Trey tried to sell it, man. He was nice flailing.
To see some passion.
Yes.
Right. Even Marvin Harrison Jr. wanting to stay in the game, even though he got his bell rung.
Yeah.
And it was the right call, right? He's still in concussion protocol, so who knows if he'll play this weekend. But you saw the head snap back.
I think he was listed as limited today, same as Kyler, and
but he wanted to stay in the game because it meant so much to him being back in Indianapolis.
Yeah, where his dad played in front of all those fans and people that appreciate him and watched him as a kid. Right. It's almost like Larry Fitzgerald going back to Minnesota when he would play there.
Exactly.
Everyone was so excited to see him play there, and I think that it is the right thing to keep him out of the game, and hopefully he doesn't miss this week. But this is going to be an interesting game against the Packers. The Packers are either world beaters one week or they lose to the Browns the next week. So they're kind of Jekyll and Hyde right now.
Right. They beat the Lions, and then you think, boy, these guys are pretty legit. But then, like you mentioned, they lost to the Browns. They tied with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
They barely beat Cincinnati with a quarterback that joined the team on Wednesday. He was like driving from Cleveland to Cincinnati, getting the offense installed on the phone.
Listen, Joe Flacco just needs to throw the ball to Chase. That's it. Just throw it to Jamar Chase.
Right.
It's just like backyard football.
So the Packers could be had.
Yeah, I think Josh Jacobs is going to be the key for the Cardinals. Right. If they can stop the running game and force Jordan Love to pass, granted, they're pretty well-oiled machine on offense. Kraft is a tight end who I have on my fantasy team has been fantastic this year. But, they have receivers like Dobbs and, the guys, it's almost like, it's not like a no-name receiving crew, but it's almost like the Cardinals last week where guys are just getting open. Dortch is open, and Zay Jones had his best game as a Cardinal. Yeah. I'm sure he'd love to see Jacoby Brissett back under center again this week. Yeah. But they defensively, they got Micah Parsons now. Right. That's a whole nother animal you got to worry about.
Major game changer that he is. I don't know what the Cowboys were thinking with that. And you mentioned about stopping the run, and Josh Jacobs, a guy that just is having some longevity, which is not something most running backs have. And even Calais Campbell talked about stopping the run. We talk about, is it going to be Brissett? Is it going to be Kyler Murray? It doesn't matter if you can't stop the run.
Well, that's true, too. And isn't it interesting in the NFL, we're seeing this trend of guys that go to their second team.
Yes.
So, Jacobs with the Raiders, good player. They just were like, do we sign him after his rookie deal? No, goes to Green Bay, new life. Can do everything, catch it out of the backfield, played at Alabama. I mean, he's solid, and now he's found a home there. I don't know. They're going to have to stop the run, and hopefully, we saw Walter Nolan's off the injured list now. Guys like him, and if Darius Robinson can get back and we can finally see what these young guys can do on the defensive line and shore that up, maybe down the road in a few weeks, we see that the running game's been completely nullified.
And you talk about guys going somewhere else and having like a new life, right? A resurgence of their career. And it's been happening a lot with the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You look at Daniel Jones, right,
yes.
that we just saw last week. Then you look at, Mac Jones with the 49ers.
Yeah.
He's looked decent. Sam Darnold with Seattle. Baker Mayfield. And some people are saying, well, what if that happens to Kyler Murray? Because a lot of people are saying this could be the last season for Kyler Murray as an Arizona Cardinal.
And I think you brought up the greatest point today when we were talking about this in the office. Kyler, it very well could happen. He could go somewhere else, and the quarterback whisperer comes in and installs an offense, and he goes to a Pro Bowl, wins 2 playoff games, and gets to a championship game. But the point you brought up, Cliff Kingsbury was a rookie head coach, had never coached in the NFL. In Kyler's defense. And then Jonathan Gannon, first-time head coach.
Right.
So now
in the NFL.
So now, yes, Kyler's been the quarterback, an NFL quarterback for 7 years, and he's had this same system with Drew Petzing now for 3. But really, if you had told me John Gruden was his coach for 5 years and he was playing how he plays now, I'd be like, okay, it's obviously not working.
Right. It's not like he's had Andy Reid as his head coach.
Right.
And he hasn't been able to win.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's in his defense. Now, it's his team.
Right.
So does he come back from this foot injury? How bad is this foot injury? We don't really know.
Yeah.
And does it become something where if they fall and continue to lose games that he just doesn't play the rest of the year?
Right. Or they help him out this week, give him the bye week, get him healthy for Dallas.
I think that's
a game that's going to mean a lot to him from that area.
And it's Monday Night Football. I think to me that would be the target. And because I think Jacoby Brissett proved last week that you can win. I think you can win a game with him, and you can win this game with him.
Yes.
And especially with a guy like Micah Parsons that's going to come in hot, that you can 1, 2, 3, boom, balls out.
Right.
You don't give him a chance to get a sack. Now with Kyler, if he sees the pressure and starts running around,
Michael will eventually get to him.
Or somebody else comes in and blindsides him. But then how with the foot, he can't really move around like that. So it's almost to keep him out of harm's way. I would think that they would probably sit him this week.
Right. And speaking of quarterbacks with injuries and stopping the run, you can just take that,
move it to Tempe.
Exactly. Just plug it in for the college kids because, boy, the Sun Devils could not stop the run in Utah. 6 touchdowns. 6 of the first 7 possessions were scores for Utah. They were just running the ball at will. It doesn't matter if Sam Leavitt or Jeff Sims is your quarterback.
No.
If you're giving up, over 260 yards rushing.
I had a bad feeling about that game. I think we talked about it last week where you kind of knew if Sam wasn't going to play, that this was almost a game where they said, okay, you know what? We know we're probably not going to win this game. We'll put something out there. We'll try to see if we can keep it close. I think when they had the field goal block that would have made it 14-6, that kind of just deflated everything, and the weather was terrible, and you're just trying to get out of there with no injuries. And it's sad that they lose Ben Coleman for the year.
Right.
You know, the 19-year offensive lineman who's, you know, Ben's great. We've had him down at the station, great kid, and really a stud on that offensive line, you know, and then not to have Sam, it didn't look like a game that you were going to win anyway, and it doesn't hurt your chances to get to the Big 12 championship, but I think it was almost, again, maybe like Kyler, hold him out to the Monday night game. With Sam, it was like, let's save him for Texas Tech because
they have to win this game.
They have to win.
I mean, it's going to be another tough game. Texas Tech is 6-0. Their margins of victory: 60 points, 48 points, 31 points, 24 points against Utah in Utah, 24 points against Houston, 25. They haven't had a game closer than 24 points all season long.
And the game against Utah, their backup quarterback came in and played lights out. Well, so it doesn't matter who plays quarterback.
Freshman who's legit in Will Hammond, right?
Yeah.
Even Baron Morton, it seems to be good. But when you got a guy like Cameron Dickey running the ball, okay, yes, he had 260 yards this last game, but it could be just one big game because I looked up his stats. You look at the rest of his games, he hasn't had one game over 100 yards. But he had 206. Maybe that's just Kansas's run defense is that bad.
Yeah.
But when you look at the way the Devils were against the run, you're thinking, oh boy, this could be another perfect game for Dickey.
And ASU has been strong against the run up until last week. So maybe last week was the outlier where they're all kind of like, okay, let's just get this one over with and get home and rest up for this game. But I think national TV on Fox 10, 1 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah.
Hopefully the place is packed. I mean, if anything, Sun Devil fans should not lose faith after that Utah game. Right. Yes, it was bad. You lose by 40, you lose by 1, it's still a loss. You know, so if they can somehow win this game, their schedule is pretty light on the back end. They potentially could run the table like they did last year and get to the Big 12 championship game. It's not out of reach.
No. And last year they were 2-2 in conference play, and then they, like you said, went on that run. And I think the fans are going to show up and show out because it's good. It's perfect weather, right? It's going to be a great day. But if you can't make it, you can watch the game on Fox 10. We'll have it for you. But still, like Kenny Dillingham says, he wants to activate the Valley. This is the time, right? This is a big game. Texas Tech, they're 6-0. They're the cream of the crop in the Big 12. And, of course, we'll have all the highlights all weekend long and, of course, much more during Fox 10 Sports Night at 10:30. We're going to have much more on the local sports scene coming up in a matter of minutes. We're going to take a break for a second. We got to talk Suns basketball. The NBA season is here, so more on Fox 10 Talks after the break. We'll be right back, so hang with us. All right, and we're back. It's the second segment of Fox and Talk Sports. The fun stuff. We got my guy Mark Malerich here. We talked about the Cardinals, right? We talked about the Sun Devils. We kind of touched on the Mercury. They bow out in 4 games, right? The Aces were just too tough. They ran into a buzzsaw. Now we're going to talk about the Phoenix Suns. Yeah. They played their final preseason game yesterday. They got their first regular season game on Wednesday, taking on the Sacramento Kings right here in Phoenix. And I'm telling you, a lot of new faces in key places for the Phoenix Suns, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. I like the new collection of guys because it feels like a team now. It doesn't feel like a 1 or 2 guys or big 3 has to carry the team. It's basically Devin Booker is the leader. Dylan Brooks is going to be his Robin and protector. And then these rest of these guys, this young energy of guys who just want to run up and down and play fast and hustle. That's the brand of basketball we saw with the Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges. The young college feel. Everybody was just up. The energy was like the energy is going to be so much better this year. We were talking during the break just about like win totals and all that stuff. And I feel like however many games they win, they won't feel like the wins last year kind of felt just like, yeah, they won, but, you got to go to these games and you got to get your money's worth. You got to be entertained, especially the way things cost now. And I think if you're going to a Suns game now, you are going to be entertained. Right. You want to see some passion. That's it. You guys diving on the floor. Blocking shots. And Common Malerich. Yes. I know he's just a teenager. Yeah. Right. He's the 10th pick overall. But, boy, this last night, he looked great, and it was so ironic that they were playing the Lakers, and DeAndre Ayton is now with the Lakers, and Ayton had 13 and 10, like which he can get when he rolls out of bed. Yeah. The Common Malerich, boy, that guy hustles. He's long, and when he gets near the rim, he's going to attack it and throw it down. And he was a stat sheet stuffer. He had 17 points, 8 rebounds, couple blocks, communicating out there. And then he's a good. Afterwards, they interview him, and they say, thanks for the interview. He goes, well, thanks for having me. How many people, how many NBA players are saying, thanks for the interview? Well, and he has that basketball intelligence. And now, granted, when the regular season rolls around, will he get as many minutes as he had last night? Probably not. Right. But to see what he did last night, if I'm Jordan Ott and I'm the head coach, I go, I can trust him. Right. I can play him 40 minutes. I can play him 10 minutes. And I know whatever the situation in the game, he's going to do what I need to do and play with effort and energy. And the thing I loved, and you talk about defense, is that he's communicating. He's being vocal. He's going to help and showing help, but then recovering and blocking that dunk that Ayton had, even though he got the putback after. But just protecting the rim, rebounding. How much did we not see rebounding last year? Yeah. Everybody wants to see the dunks and the threes, but how important is rebounding and defense? Right. You can't win without defense. Yeah, and I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise that the starters didn't play last night. They were in China, long trip, and give these young guys a chance to get their beak wet, right? And get something positive, something exciting for them as the regular season starts, because like you mentioned, the guys that played last night are probably not going to play a lot of minutes, right? Yeah. And I think one guy that got lost in the shuffle was Dylan Brooks. You mentioned him. He's one of those guys that you love when he's on your team, but you hate when he's 100%. On the other team. And he enjoys being the villain, right? He enjoys hanging his hat on defense. And another guy that's maybe not the villain, but likes to play defense more than offense is Ryan Dunn. So you got those two guys. It's like having 2 Dobermans out there. You could just sick on the opposing team. Well, and you talk about dogs and Dobermans. What do they like? They like treats. And to me, Dylan Brooks is looking at this like that corner 3 when Devin Booker has the ball. Right. And I can play defense, but look at my treat. My treat is wide open corner 3s. Right. I think he could be a 15-point scorer this year and play lockdown defense, which I think is going to be huge for the Suns. And, the other guy that came over in that trade that's a little bit concerning off the bat is Jalen Green. Is got a little bit of a hamstring, and he hasn't missed a game in a couple years, but I think that'll all work itself out. Right. But what's going to be fun is I like how Jordan Ott is taking him. He has a plan, and he's in every interview we see, he talks glowingly about all of his guys. Right. And how to be cautious. Like I heard him talk about Malerich. Like, look, he had a great game, but he's going to have ups and downs. Yes. You got to let him have his downs. Yes. But on the back end of that, he's going to have this upside, and that growth is not linear. And I thought that was a great line, because with these young guys, it's not. And I think that's the same thing with this team. The growth is not going to be linear. They may go on a 5-game stretch where they're world beaters, and then they may go on a stretch where they lose 3 games, and you're like, whoa, what is this? Right. You're going to have some growing pains. Yeah, but
what if they stay together? And then 2 years from now all of a sudden it's like that team with Bridges and Cam Johnson back
then.
then.
No matter what happens, no matter what the score is, you're going to see the effort that's going to be there.
Yeah.
That's going to be the big difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of Jordan Ott, Brian Gregory, what they were talking about, being connected, having some unity, having some chemistry. And yes, I want to warn fans out there when it comes to Common Mile Watch. He's a teenager. He's still growing into his body. He's still growing with his mind when it comes to the game of basketball. So we're going to have to be patient with him. But the one thing is he's going to bring effort. He's going to bring excitement. He's going to bring hustle. He's going to bring some defense. We talked to John Bloom, right, the voice of the Phoenix Suns, about this upcoming season and the excitement that is starting to build as you get closer to opening night. And he had a lot of good things to say. Let's listen in on what he had to say.
I think, the last couple seasons, but going into the season, the energy was high, and then quickly it kind of tapered off. My anticipation is this year it's not going to be the case. It's just from having been to a few practices, called the first few preseason games, and watched this group, they're bringing a consistent level of energy. You talked about excitement. I certainly have an excitement level for this group. It's different. You're not necessarily expecting championship level basketball, but I'm not sure that there's a lot of people out there that want to be in that realm right now after what we just went through the last couple seasons.
Yeah, it definitely seems like this group is going to be more fun to watch, right? It seems like Brian Gregory, Jordan Ott are getting guys that fit their mold, fit their identity. Guys that are going to be hustling out there and playing night in and night out, no matter what the record is, what the score is.
Well, and that's the thing. You brought up a brand new head coach in Jordan Ott, a brand new general manager in Brian Gregory. So there is a lot on these guys for their first season. And I think that deserves a little grace as well when you look at what the expectations for this team should be. I think there is excitement, as we've already touched on, and that doesn't mean that they're going to lose more than that they win. I actually think that this is a team that's poised to win more games than they did last season, even with the change in roster, losing a superstar like Kevin Durant, obviously stopping the Bradley Beal experiment as well at the same time. And then you bring in a bunch of new faces. They've got to learn each other. The coaching staff has to learn what they have. Everybody has to get a role established, Richard. You know this. Basketball teams, when they're at their best, they've got those roles firmly denied. And I think it's going to take a little while for this group before that happens.
Yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of new faces in key places, right? The Kevin Durant trade, the big offseason move. I think one guy that got kind of lost in the shuffle is Dylan Brooks. He's a guy, he's a dog. He's a culture changer. He's a game vibe setter, right? He's a guy that you want on that wall. You need on that wall. You hate him when he's on the other team, but you love him when he's on your team. And I think he's going to help out right away and kind of protect Devin Booker to a certain degree.
Yeah, I agree. And Devin really hasn't had a guy like that. And it's going to be a fascinating thing to watch it take place on the floor and off. They've already bonded off the floor, the two of them. Dylan Brooks is a veteran who came in here. He obviously is not going to try to take over leadership of this team. He's deferred to Devin Booker. He knows this is Devin's team. However, if you watch Dylan Brooks and the way he behaves, he is a natural-born leader.
Right.
Now, Dylan the villain is a real thing, all right? It's a personality. He's concocted it, and he has absolutely perfected it because he gets in the opposition's heads. We've been that opposition in the past, and you don't like him. Like you said, when he's on your team, you love him, and I've already gotten a taste for that and what he can do, not just from the villain standpoint, but also from a team-building standpoint within the walls.
Let's go for sure, right? Let's get this thing going. You got to love the excitement when it comes to the Phoenix Suns, right? And you got to have guys that are willing to embrace that villain role. Another guy that was kind of like that, but he's kind of softened over his career as he's matured is Grayson Allen.
Yeah,
a guy that can be tough when he needs to be.
Yeah, there's a guy that a lot of people in the NBA don't like, but again, if he's on your team, you do like him. And it was weird because last year they had him bulk up in the offseason, or he chose to, because the Budenholzer wanted him to like be able to guard guys and be stronger. And to me, that's not his game. And the fact that he's leaned out, it just tells me that this team's going to run. They're going to be like the Phoenix Suns of old. They're going to run up and down. They're going to get good shots. First available shots, maybe like the 7 seconds or less years. Right. And that plays perfect for Grayson Allen's game for sure. Get the ball up, get some shots up.
You mentioned Coach Bud. It was kind of interesting because Grayson Allen, when he first got here, before Coach Bud got here, he had a great year. And everyone's like, man, this guy's great. But when he was in Milwaukee before he got here, he didn't have a good season with Coach Bud. And then when Coach Bud came, I'm like, oh, no, I think Grayson Allen's going to take a step back. And that actually what happened. But I think he's going to have an uptick. He's going to be a part of that starting lineup, at least in the early parts. And you know, he's a fan favorite. A lot of people really like him, and for good reason, because he's one of those guys that hustles.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like we saw with the Cardinals on offense last week, where the ball got distributed to multiple players on offense. I think that's what you're going to see. It's not going to be throw it to Kevin Durant, ISO ball, get a shot up, or give it to Devin Booker, ISO ball. It's going to be movement, and whoever has the best available shot is going to take it.
Yeah. And we haven't even touched on Devin Booker, a guy that's, you know, back to being the man for the team. I think when it was him and Kevin Durant, Devin Booker is such a great guy. It was almost like he was deferring a little too much. Like, no, you shoot. No, you shoot.
Right.
But now we know, game on the line, who's going to get the shot, and they've built around him, and that's got to do wonders for his confidence.
And the fact that this team is young, and he can help these guys grow, and he knows, and it's got that vibe. And the fact that they're not expected to win a lot of games, there's not as much pressure. So now you can kind of sneak up on people.
Right.
And obviously Devin Booker is not going to sneak up on people, but as a team, you could maybe, I mean, the over-under in Vegas is 30, 31 and a half.
Right.
To me, I think they could win, 35 to 38 games, but it's going to be a fun 35. Right. Not like last year where you're just like, oh my gosh, they won 35 games, because there's no expectations.
Right.
And that's in Valley Sports. No expectations always means something good's going to happen.
You're right, when you least expect it. And Kobe Brea, we haven't even touched on him, another one of those rookies. Man, he's got a smooth stroke.
Smooth, and he was taking Bronny James to school yesterday, posting him up, shooting that little mid-range. But he looks like a guy that just kind of reminds me of Danny Green.
Yes.
Just a guy that's going to always be in the right place to make shots. And he's not going to be a star, but he's a perfect role player. And like John Bloom was saying, when everybody knows their role, that's when a team is dangerous.
Right. Yeah. And it could be interesting to see these guys grow into their roles, grow that chemistry.
Yep.
And Jordan Ott as well as a first-year head coach. So he's going to be a guy to watch. He seems to be fitting that mold of these young hotshot coaches that know what they're doing. And he came up from the film room like Eric Spoelstra over in Miami. So those guys know their stuff. Mark knows his stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching, because we're going to keep talking, and we'll do it again next week. Thanks for watching.